Hey, Campfire Crew. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy whatever you're celebrating, or maybe just chilling out listening to some scary stories. Let's get it on. Family of Psychos, submitted by PJ. Well, this is taking me back a few years, but I've never sent in a story to your channel, so I do have a few more. Hope you like this one. I figured at this point, what the hell? I look back and it's kind of funny at this point, but at the time, it wasn't. That I assure you. This took place in 2013, my sophomore year in college. Winter break was coming up, and I'd been with this girl I had met at school since the end of freshman year, so maybe about 7 months. I'll call her Jill. Jill and I met through mutual friends. One of my close buddies from home was at the same school as me, and he had been dating one of Jill's friends. I'll call them Chris and Jenny. We'd had a great summer together, Jill and I. She lived about an hour away, so we spent weekends at each other's homes and stuff, and I really did like her. But when we got back to school, she got overly clingy and demanding. I remember when we got our classes for the fall semester, she was so angry that our schedules didn't match to a T. She actually asked me to change some around or drop some and take those classes in the spring so that we would have more time together. Yeah, I should have known things weren't going to go well right off the bat. But I laughed and told her no way. 4 of the 5 classes were in my major, and one was actually hard to get into as there was only one session. Jill got pissed and started the whole, if you cared about our relationship, you'd do it crap. But there was no way I was changing my schedule for bullshit time. Plus, I was about to go for a double major and couldn't afford to. She ignored me for an entire weekend. Wouldn't answer her phone or texts, wouldn't answer her dorm room door if she was even in there at all, and I figured maybe she had just dumped me. Finally, that Sunday night she showed up in my room and was all happy to see me, like nothing had happened. I asked her if she was still mad at me, and she laughed and said, "No, what are you talking about?" Like the 20-year-old moron that I was, I just shrugged my shoulders and everything went back to normal. Honestly, it even sped things up because we started having sex right after that. I mean, guys, you know how that goes, thinking with your other head. The semester started great, and we went out to parties every weekend, and then we did couple stuff all the time. I'm a huge softy romantic and would take her on picnics to nearby parks and stuff all the time to surprise her. But again, something happened. She needed to work on a project one Saturday night, and my friend's frat was having this huge party, a homecoming banger that everyone on campus wanted in on. I had been playing my guitar at coffee houses and on campus events for free since freshman year, and sometimes made decent tip money. My flatmate asked me to play at their party, and I said, yeah, they were going to pass the hat for me, and I was stoked. Jill? She didn't like that one bit. I told her that I was only supposed to play from 9 to 10, and that I'd take off and come hang out with her in her lab. She was a photography major. That's where she'd be doing her work, but that wasn't okay either. She literally started screaming at me on our quad as we ate lunch. And then get this, dumped her food all over me after standing up and stomping away. A lot of people saw that and were taken aback at the outburst. I went back to my dorm to get cleaned up and told my roomie Phil, and he said, "Brother, end this now. She's not playing with a full deck." He knew about the scheduling thing, and some other creepy notes that she left on our door about her watching me on campus. I thought about it, but decided to wait. Again, I don't know why. She did the same disappearing act again, and that Saturday I did the show, had a blast, and made some decent green. I also scored some green and was going to go home, get cleaned up, get some coffee, and then surprise Jill at her lab and maybe have a little smoky. When I got there, the door was locked, but I could see the lights were on in the lab. I knocked and called for her, but she or nobody else answered. I waited for like 20 minutes, texted and called, and then said, "Okay, I'm leaving, TTYL." I went back to my dorm, pulled out my stash of rum and coke fixings, and was just going to chill and watch Saturday Night Live by myself. I mean, I wasn't angry. It wasn't anything. Then a text came. "No, you're not." I texted back, "Huh? You okay? Missed you at the lab." She texted back, "You're not going anywhere." And that was it. Nothing else, despite me responding and calling her one last time. Phil came home all hammered with some new chick, so I said, "You know what, I'll crash in the common room, dude." Our room was right at the start of the hallway from the common room, and there was a TV out there, so I loaded up a sneaky rum and coke and went out to hang out there. My RA was super dope, by the way, and even though we weren't supposed to sleep in the common area, and certainly not drink out there, he popped in and asked if I was okay. Then he looked at my cup, shook his head, and said, "Tell Phil to plan better. I'm going to let you slide tonight." Okay, so this is where things start to get pretty fucked up. I fell asleep around 2, and I never heard any of the other guys or anyone in the dorm for that matter moving around. I woke up around 6 and decided I wanted my bed despite Phil's boinking time. I could see our door from the couch that I was on, and there was something taped all over the door. There were photographs of Jill. Selfies on film, if you will. There were close-ups, there were faraway shots, all in a studio in her lab. The words "love you," "love," and stuff were on some of them. But there were 2 that made me step back. One was her reaching for the camera with the words "You're mine" written on it, and another saying "You're staying with me." That one was a close-up, and she had the strangest look on her face. I took them down, went inside, and crawled into bed. I did take a picture of them on my door for good measure. Phil and his chick were dead to the world, and though I was troubled, I went back to sleep. So, where's all this going? I get it. I waited another week to hear from her, but didn't. Only through post-its on my door or my shared office at a campus promotion place I worked for my major. Things like, "Don't drift," and "Don't even think about it." Other stuff like that was left in both places. At that point, I didn't think this was cool at all. I talked to my RA, and after hardly any prompting from Phil and Chris, who I'd told about this behavior too, I called her and left her a message that we needed to talk immediately. She didn't answer for a day, and I left another that said, "Jill, forget it. It's over. We're done." Again, no response. When I did that second phone call, Chris and Jenny were in my room. She had also not heard anything from Jill since the weird stuff started going down, and I said, "Don't care, moving on." Winter break was coming up, and Chris and I had bought tickets to a concert in our hometown during Christmas week, and it was supposed to include the girls. Well, not Jill anymore. I heard nothing from her. Went home for break, and had invited a couple of other people over to my place before the show. Chris, Jenny, and my other friends came to my parents' house, and we had a quick bite and then headed for downtown to enjoy the night. It was pretty dark at that point, maybe around 7. I was borrowing my dad's Jeep Cherokee and volunteered to be the designated driver, so we were all piling in and talking, and I never noticed the figure standing in front of the Jeep down in my driveway. We have a fairly long driveway, and this figure was about 20 feet down towards the road. I got in, the lights came on, and there stood a woman in a long, puffy winter coat with something in her hand. I actually jumped a little and hit the horn, and then everybody looked up. "Who is that, your neighbor?" asked Jenny, and I said no. I started to see who it was. I had only met her 5 or 6 times, but it was clearly Jill's mom. I froze. What the hell was she doing all the way out here? She slowly walked up to my window, holding something behind her that I couldn't see. She got right in the window, and I finally asked, is there something I can help you with? Are you okay? Is Jill okay? She just breathed heavily and said, You did this to her, and now you don't think she deserves to see the band? Huh? Was it? She raised her voice and said, Jilly deserves to go to the show. Give me her ticket. I finally stammered out, I'm sorry, I sold that ticket. We're not together anymore, Mrs. Blank. Now she screamed, Give me the fucking ticket. You did this to her. She swung her hand around with one of those glass-breaking tools and smashed my driver's side window. We all yelled, and before I knew it, this psycho threw yellow paint in the car all over me, the console, the dash, everywhere. Before I could even react, I heard my dad's voice yell out, Hey, who the fuck are you? Get away from those kids. Like in a daze, I saw her turn, throw both the tool and the little bucket of paint in my dad's direction, and then start running down the driveway. I fired up the Jeep despite faintly hearing my dad yelling, PJ, no, don't fucking move, kid. Then I came to my senses and stopped. Everyone in the Jeep was obviously freaking out. My dad ran down the driveway and we all got out. I called 911 and yelled into the phone what was going on. They said they were on their way and asked if we knew what kind of car she was driving, if we knew which direction she went in. But, well, we didn't need to. 1, she was hammered to the bejesus. And 2, she had tried to drive up our street, took a corner too fast and hopped over a curb, went back into the street and then slammed into a fire hydrant and got stuck. Bonus? Jill was in the car with her. They both got hauled off. Mom got a DUI, assault, aggravated assault, menacing, which I always thought was a cool word, providing alcohol to an underage recipient, and a whole word salad of charges. All she wanted was for me to give her a ticket to a concert, and apparently Jill had gone off the deep end when I was, quote, no longer hers. She had stopped eating and speaking. I mean, really wacky stuff. Dad was concerned about us, but I was even madder about the Jeep. We ended up making it to the show that night and had a decent time, but it took a long time for us to cool down. Psycho Mom? She got 3 years, 18 months really, and then probation for whatever it is they reward criminals with those days. And I never saw Jill again. I know she didn't go back to our college. So why'd this story pop up in my head? I was on LinkedIn the other day, and those random people you should connect with came up. And there, how many years later, was Jill's face. She looked okay in her headshot, but now I noticed there was something off in her eyes. It was actually really creepy. Just kind of a dead look. Truth is, I really wish I had seen that when I first met her, and saved myself all the trouble. 2 quickies to end with. Jenny had never seen Jill acting that way as long as she had known her, about 8 years. And no, I didn't connect with her on LinkedIn. Merry Christmas, everybody. Unwanted Guest, submitted by Scary Gary. Here's a fucked up little story for you. First off, I didn't even want to go to this party. I shouldn't have. I mean, I love parties, don't get me wrong, but holiday parties to me are for the birds. Too many amateurs, too many assholes on the road, and too many strangers. But I got roped into this one. My friends were pressuring me, and I really didn't have a good excuse other than I just didn't feel like going. And at the end of the day, everyone was really lucky I did go. So here's the story. There's a clear line of the rich side and poor side of town where I live. Of course, that line is straddled with the middle of the road varying to different degrees on either side. Me and my friends were decidedly middle-class clowns. My buddy Carl was seeing this girl who was in the elite and was totally shot in the ass with her and her friends, and I guess we were into her friends as they were all hot. Yeah, I said it, they were hot, sue me. We got invited to her house between Christmas and New Year's for a party. No parents, promise of lots of beer and other drinks. So my friend Leo and I said we'd go. Vicky said 2 of her friends actually liked us too, so there was that. We were all 19 at the time, circa 2020, before the pandemic became what it became. I mean, shit was weird, but we were stupid kids down for tomfoolery and hijinks. Carl drove us to her neighborhood, a gated community, and we went inside. I was actually surprised at how cool everyone was. It wasn't like in the movies where the rich jocks just shit on everyone else. We got cups, talked to the ladies, and just dove right into the merriment. Everything was killer, and no one was getting out of line. Again, no destroyed property or house. Everything was relatively chill, and just a good party. There were about 75 people, and I was amazed that cops hadn't been called. But I think that was due to having no neighbors really close by, and the house was set back off the street. Around 11 o'clock, Vicky was talking to Carl and a few other guys from her group. I could tell she looked like something was wrong. The girl I was hitting on, and I went over to them and asked what was up. Vicky said that 2 guys were wandering around the party that she didn't recognize. They were bigger dudes, was all she said, and she didn't know where they'd gone off to. The guys started to wander around the house to check on things, but room after room was just people having a good time, no trouble, and no signs of the 2 strangers. Carl told Vicky maybe they just left, so that's what we all agreed on, and then went back into the living room to play beer pong. Half an hour later, shit went down. Music from the house sound system went off, and a loud voice yelled, "Everybody on the fucking ground now!" I was pretty buzzed and slowly scanned the room to see what was up. The 2 big guys were standing there, one at an exit to a kitchen, and one by the back patio doors. I mean, clearly there were other people still in the house, and I could hear other people talking in confusion and some distant doors opening. I looked at the one guy by the door, and oh shit. He had a pistol in his hand and was holding it up over his head. He screamed again, and slowly people started going down onto the floor. I held on to my girl and said, "Just get down here with me." I'm not lying, I was shit scared. None of that bravado of a tough guy standing up was happening, and certainly not with me. But in my buzzed state, I remembered my ace in the hole. My cousin Rick, Sergeant Rick of the town's PD. When we got down on the ground, the guys were yelling for everyone to hand over their cash, cards, jewelry, phones, whatever. They were walking in between people with pillowcases trying to snatch what they could. I slid my hand under a couch and frantically stabbed at my iPhone for Rick's cell number. To this day, I don't know why I didn't call. And maybe for one clear minute I knew that a call wouldn't tell him what was happening and where fast enough. So I started texting the best I could. 911, Gary, gun, party, hurry. Then I looked up to see where the guys were. They were not looking at me, so I typed the address as best I could and then NK, not kidding. He immediately responded, "Do what they ask. On way." I then dialed his number and slowly rolled next to the young lady next to me and whispered, "Help is coming. I'm not being fresh." I pulled up her cocktail dress and slid my phone into her tights and let it go. She looked at me terrified, but I said, "Hang on," as quietly as I could. I didn't want them catching me with my phone. The guys kept moving around and yelling, and minutes seemed to go like hours. One of the guys finally got to us and screamed at me, "Your fucking wallet and phone." I said, "I don't have a wallet or phone," and he leaned down and said, "Pull your fucking hand out from under that couch." I did and showed him nothing. He grabbed the girl's little clutch purse thing that she had and then moved away. 7 minutes went by, and then the voices came. "Police! Put your fucking hands up! Don't you move, you piece of shit! Put your goddamn fucking hands up!" Everything was over as quickly as it started. The two guys were busted right there with nowhere to go with all the people in the crowded room. Their guns? Yeah, they were air guns, but I assure you, they looked like the real deal. Tons of cops flooded in, and of course, despite our terror, we all got reamed out, and Carl's girl got charges for having the party. Rick came in and found me and said, "Good job, kid. You did real good." After an hour of taking our names and statements, some people got appearance tickets and others didn't. It's something people still bitch about to this day. The girl gave me my phone back and thanked me for keeping her cool. And I told her, "Hey man, I was about to piss my pants." These two guys had just been driving around randomly looking for a party to rob. And gee whiz, the one we went to happened to be the one they decided on. We never found out how they got through the community's main gate, though. I ended up dating that girl for a while, but we split up last year. We're still on good terms and we're friends. And I get a lot of pats on the back for what happened that night. But honestly, I don't and didn't need the accolades. I'm just glad my drunk brain worked properly for the split second that it did. But no, this doesn't mean I'm going to a Christmas party this year. Crazy Christmas by M4DM1. I've told many ghost stories over the years, and most people don't believe them. Frankly, I was one of those non-believers when I was younger. My family would watch paranormal movies and out-of-this-world kind of things, but who would think that something like that could probably be real? I'm the second oldest in my family, and I never would have imagined the feeling of losing a close relative so soon, let alone my own father. A few days after my 12th birthday in December of 2002, my father became very ill. He had actually suffered 2 heart attacks within a year. We had just visited him in the hospital because it was Christmas Eve. All of my siblings and mother were sitting by his bed, and he was sitting there, stoic. Of course, we gave him hugs and kisses, but he whispered in my ear to stay behind for a minute, so I did. After everyone left the room, all he said was, "I love you so much, my girl. Stay strong for them, okay?" And I nodded. The next morning, Mother went to visit Father in the hospital. In my mind, I was thinking, yes, Dad's coming home for Christmas. I looked at the clock, and it was 5:30 a.m. right on the dot. The phone rang, with no name or number listed. Still, a curious child, I answered the phone even though I was told not to. But it was Dad. He was laughing. He said, "My girl, I love you. I love your sisters and brothers and of course your mother. Tell them that, my girl. I love you all, and I'll see you later." And then he hung up. I never got to say a word back. He just talked, and I listened, and that was that. Mom walked in holding a bag, crying so hard her face was red. She said that Dad had passed away that morning. Everyone started crying immediately, but I didn't. I said, "No, he didn't. I just talked to him." She explained to me what had happened, and even down to the time when he took his last breath, which was exactly at 5:30 a.m. It took me weeks to comprehend what had happened. I couldn't tell my mother about the phone call from him. It was beyond too devastating for her to hear. I knew that even as a little kid. I sat with my father on the last night of his wake. I talked to him and asked him why he had left, why he had called home, and told me what he had told me. And lastly, why didn't he let me say, "See you later," back to him? I knew he would never be able to answer me, but still, I had to ask. I adjusted the items we had all put in his casket, his favorite Minnesota Vikings cap, His sunglasses, pictures we drew for him and pictures of us, and of course my mother's letter she sent with him, propped neatly in his casket. The next Christmas my mother went all out. She bought everything we asked for, even though I had told her I didn't want anything. I opened all my gifts except for one, admiring the bow and paper and how neatly it was wrapped. My mom anxiously said, "Just open it already." So I did, and it was a camera. Kind of odd because I just told her the day before that I wished I had a camera to take more family pictures. I put the battery and memory card in it and made it ready for picture-taking time. At that exact moment, I remembered that TV show we watched when Dad was still alive. He laughed at an episode because they were taking pictures at turned-off electronic devices that had screens on them. He said it was the dumbest thing he had ever seen, and I told him it was cool because of all the little dots and shadows they were getting. Yeah, it was a paranormal show. But whenever these people uploaded the pictures onto a computer, it would turn the whole thing off and it would no longer work. See, my dad would say, it's fake. I thought about trying it, because it was exactly 1 year from Dad's passing. I turned the TV off and everyone was looking at me and getting mad because they were watching a Christmas movie. I pointed the camera at the tree and TV. Orbs were everywhere in the picture. No shadows or anything that I could see on the camera screen. Nothing that looked like Father. Just orbs. The second picture, I pointed the camera at the TV screen, like I said was already turned off. All you could see on the camera screen was a flash of the TV. Was a flash on the TV, and that was it. All my siblings and even my mother finally told me this was a dumb idea and turned the damn TV back on. So I did. The next day, I went to see the pictures on my computer. I blew up the pictures to see if I caught anything, and I sat down and plugged my camera in, and to my surprise, in the first picture, I caught a shadow behind the tree, along with the orbs that were floating around it. I showed my mom and siblings. They laughed and said it was fake. The second picture, I magnified the pic by accident, and it zoomed into the middle of the picture, right under the flash on the TV screen. I jumped out of my chair and ran to grab my mom. She came to the computer and she saw it. Right when she got close enough to the computer, she broke down crying. I had caught a picture perfect of my father's face right under the flash on the TV screen. I showed my siblings this picture and they all had tears in their eyes. And that was when I decided to tell them of the phone call that I had gotten from him the year before. After showing him this picture, I figured they would now believe me. I didn't have to keep my secret anymore. They hugged me and said it was the best Christmas gift I had ever given. Now here's the strange part. The next morning, our computer suddenly went on the fritz before I'd even gotten time to email it to my other family members. I went to look at my camera, and it was burning up hot, so I took the batteries out, but the memory card was literally fried. I couldn't believe it. Fairly new computer, brand new camera, both shot in a day. To this very day, my siblings and I remember and talk about this as if it were just the best thing that ever happened, which in some cases it is. We no longer have our mother as well. My parents always told me that when someone passes away, they never die. They just rest. And you're not ever supposed to say goodbye. It's always see you later. So rest in peace to my wonderful father. This will always really be his story, but mine to share.